Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Before I dive into today's review, I do want to mention if you enjoyed the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links for the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. And to do so, all you have to do is visit gaminggang.com, click on one of our banners, and that way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal or become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links in the show notes. Also, down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It is free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. Small Publisher September continues, as today I am going to review the starter set for Castles and Crusades from Trollord Games. This box set is available now, carries an MSRP of $29.99. Normally, you can get just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. As I record this, right now you can get a special price of $10 on that PDF. I have no idea how long that special price will last. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Castles and Crusades Starter Set. A few things to mention before I get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Trollord Games were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the 3 booklets contained within, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside this starter set. And then lastly, the 3rd booklet is an adventure. So if you're a player and your castle keeper, the game master in this case, has already picked up the box set, maybe they just haven't started running it yet, maybe they're talking about running this, please keep in mind there are going to be some minor spoilers as we take a peek at that adventure booklet. Now, of course, if your game master is thinking about picking up this starter set, by all means, let them know about this review. That way they can approach this and make a far more informed buying decision. So what's inside this box? Let's take a peek. First of all, we have a set of polyhedral dice. My box set has these red gem dice. Sadly, there is only one 6-sided die. If you follow the Gaming Gang, if you watch my videos when I'm talking about starter sets, dice sets, things like that, I always appreciate multiple 6-sided dice. And the reasoning behind that is because just about every single role-playing game that utilizes a set of polyhedral dice will require you to roll multiple 6-sided dice a ton. So it just looks weird when you have one nice, cool die and then you have to roll 3 6-sided dice and it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll take these Yahtzee dice and include them in the mix. I'm just saying. Now, I would take a guess that we will see another print run of this starter set not too far down the line. I would love to see some additional 6-sided dice. 3 or 4 in the set would be fantastic. We also have a nice, cool, streamlined Castles and Crusades character sheet. Like the look of this a lot. Takes care of everything we need to see on one page. Fantastic. We got 4. And they are double-sided. Then we have our 3 booklets. And we've got character creation, we have directing the game, and then we also have Into the Dark. This is that adventure booklet I was talking about. Altogether, the page count is 110 pages. And I will tell you, there is loads of content packed into the 110 pages. I am very, very impressed. But the reality is we usually get really good value for the page count from Trollord Games and their releases. Before we dive into these, one thing I am kind of surprised to see is the artwork reproduced within is grayscale. And I will say, there has been some amazing artwork over the years utilized for Castles and Crusades releases, especially their book covers. And the artwork still looks really cool, but it loses a little something because it's not color, it's grayscale. And normally that is the case with Troll Lord Games releases as far as these soft covers. Of course, hardcover books will have color interiors. But here's the weird thing. One of the latest Castles and Crusades adventures, Winter's Bite, which I'll be covering in the not too distant future, same paper stock, color interior. A little surprised. Hopefully, if and when we have another print run of the starter set, maybe we see color with that. I think that would be fantastic because this is an introduction to Castles and Crusades, and you want to put your best face on. That's how you do it. Not a big deal. It's just something I was kind of surprised to see. Now, I do understand that Troll Lord Games has really beefed up their print quality because they're actually going to open up their own shop, I do believe. So that might be why we've got the color with the recent release. Well, this was actually put together a little bit of time ago. All right. So having said that, let's jump into the character creation. First thing we'll do, let's take a look at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life. I got to say, I love the Justin Girard artwork on the 3 covers. Really cool. I like how it's got a little bit of a lighter tone, but I think that's fantastic. I love those covers. I really do. So diving on in, if you're not familiar with Castles and Crusades, the title probably gives away that it is a fantasy role-playing game. It is, and it is considered by some to be old school Renaissance or old school revival. I would say it's old school Renaissance because it's got an old school flavor to it, but it is not just a rehash of original Dungeons and Dragons rules or basic expert rules or advanced D&D rules, which a vast majority of OSR releases happen to be. So I think there is a misconception with Castles and Crusades that this is built on a D&D. It is not. It has an old school mentality, but it uses more modern D20 mechanics. I'm a huge fan of Castles and Crusades. One of the first things that stands out about this character creation book is that it's character creation. It is not something we normally will see in most role-playing game starter sets. Now, I'm not saying that you never see that, but most of the time when you purchase a starter set, it is going to have pre-generated characters. It's going to give the game master enough information to run the adventure that's included in the starter set, and that's going to be about it. That is not the case here. We actually get enough character creation information to take the player characters from first level through 6th level with their characters. Now, we have core classes here, so we don't have the full complement of Castles and Crusades classes available to us, but we have the 4 core. So we have got the fighter, the thief, the cleric, and the wizard. And I was blown away by the fact that we have the ability to take the players and their characters from first level through 6th level. There is a relatively detailed bit of information about your first adventure, kind of walks you through the adventuring. So it's giving us the adventure and how the player is rolling dice and things like that. The character dies at the end. I just love that. God forbid you let any player in on the fact that, this is a fantasy world that is dangerous. it's possible your character might buy the farm, and not in a good way. I absolutely loved it. I was reading the example of play, and then I got to the end. I see the character gets killed. I was like, oh, I just love that. We've got all the information here that we need for our players. We've got loads of spells. We've got loads of equipment. We get 2 pages devoted to each of the classes to give the players enough information about what does a thief do, or I guess I should say rogue, because that's the official title of the class. You know, what does a wizard do, and so forth. What does a cleric do? So you're getting all of that information. Now, something that's also very, very important to note is Castles and Crusades Starter Set is not truly designed for someone who does not know anything about role-playing games. There is a bit of an assumption with the way this is presented that the players have an idea of what role-playing games are. So this does not hold players' hands or castle keepers' hands either throughout the process. You get the information presented to you in a relatively conversational way. This isn't just all technical writing and real dry or anything like that. It's a fun read. As a castle keeper, all 3 of the booklets are a very fun read, and you get everything you need as far as being able to create your characters and take them to 6th level. That blows me away. I thought that was such a great idea as far as the direction of this starter set. So we've got the character creation, loads of information about our spells, and we get nice, concise breakdowns of the spells themselves. Castles and Crusades is not a role-playing game where you look at like monster descriptions and they're multiple pages in length. Once again, it's got that old school vibe where it's giving you the information so that as a game master, you can utilize that information at the game table. You don't have to be sitting there flipping through to try to find something. Something else also very important, and this is kind of a tenet of role-playing games that have that old school mentality: rulings over rules. Don't bring the proceedings at your table to a screeching halt just so you can, oh, wait a second. I know I saw that rule somewhere in here. No, make a ruling, move along, keep the action going. If you have to, if it's that important, once the session is over, go find the rule that you forgot. Not a big deal. As far as playing Castles and Crusades and running Castles and Crusades, this is not a difficult game to wrap your head around. So we do have our traditional attributes. We've got our strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. We are going to roll 6-sided dice, 3 of them, not just one, to get a range of 3 to 18 for your attributes, and then you will have a modifier. So what we're looking at here as far as action resolution, when your player character wants to do something, you're going to roll against their attribute. You're going to roll an attribute test, essentially. Now, what sets Castles and Crusades apart from other role-playing games is you will have primary and secondary attributes. If you're playing as a human character, you get 3 primary, 3 secondary. If you are playing as a non-human, you will get 2 primary, 4 secondary. And the reason behind that is because if you're playing as an elf or a halfling or a dwarf, you're going to get other benefits for being non-human. Whereas humans, for one, they're the most prominent species, and they tend to be very adaptable. So even though they don't get any real special abilities because they're human, they do get that bonus of an extra primary attribute. So what will happen if you are attempting to do something, if it's based on your primary attribute, it is going to be 12 or higher on a 20-sided die. And of course, you're going to add or subtract whatever modifiers you might have available to you, and you're going to be looking for a primary attribute to roll 12 or higher. Now, depending on the difficulty of something that you're trying to achieve, you may see that higher or lower because of the difficulty. But still, that is pretty much how things work. So let's say something's relatively difficult. Somebody's going to be using their primary attribute. Castle Keeper might give that a challenge level of, say, 3, maybe 4. So you're looking at, okay, the player has to roll 15 or 16 or higher in order to succeed. Now, if you're attempting to do something and it is your secondary attribute, it's an 18. Now, I know over the years that some people out there kind of find things a little tricky as far as, okay, 12 and 18, wait, what? I know a lot of folks out there, a lot of castle keepers, a lot of players, how they approach it is it's always an 18, and then you add or subtract the challenge level. But if you are rolling a primary attribute, you just add +6, plus or minus whatever modifiers you have on top of that. I know a lot of people seem to wrap their heads around that a little easier, so that's pretty cool. So something else that stands out about this starter set is the Castle Keeper. Most starter sets are going to give you enough information as a game master in order to run the adventure that's been included in that starter set. This gives Castle Keepers the ability to expand well beyond the adventure booklet, which is contained in this starter set. I think that is excellent. We get a nice list of monsters. Give you an example here. Our monster reference. Do we have a ton of images? No. But we get a breakdown, very concise, very to the point for each of these monsters and creatures and such. We get a treasure section. Now, of course, this isn't going to have the same amount of content as the Player's Handbook or Monsters and Treasure for Castles and Crusades. But I was so impressed to see that this is not just a starter set that's trying to focus on getting the players and the game master through the starting adventure and then leaving it at that. So really, really well done. So that is directing the game. I will mention, because this is coming right on the heels of my review of the Dungeons and Dragons Heroes of the Borderlands starter set, which I like, I recommend. I'm sure some folks will be kind of curious. Why would they maybe want to pick this up rather than that box that's got like all that content in it? One of the first things is, of course, if you have kind of a clue about role-playing games, you don't need to have your hand held throughout the entire process. This does not speak down to you. This is going to provide the Castle Keeper with ideas of how to go about expanding upon what's included in this box. Because the adventure booklet's not going to take your player characters to level 6, but that adventure booklet does include a ton of adventure hooks and story nuggets and things like that. And of course, comparing this to the Dungeons and Dragons starter set, the playbook and the adventure booklets are focused on just that starter set, getting you through that starter set. Directing the game, even though it's such a short book, it's 32 pages in length, this is aimed at teaching game masters on how to be a castle keeper. I like that a ton. Final booklet, Into the Dark, which is our adventure booklet. And one of the first things that I noticed as I was reading through this adventure, which I was very, very happy to see, was just little items that are tossed into this adventure, which are giving the castle keeper just sort of ideas on how to expand this adventure. There's little plot points that aren't actually included in this adventure that you might want to expand out from the town of Gray Gulch, or some things that you can include in what's going on in a town. The adventure itself, pretty standard fare. It's a village that's being terrorized by a giant and its band of goblins, and the village is pretty much at the end of its rope. They're pretty much squeezed dry, and they ask the player characters to get rid of this giant, get rid of these goblins. And that's what's taking place. Now, something I will talk about with the village itself that I thought was really nice compared to the Dungeons and Dragons starter set that just came out. The Keep on the Borderlands booklet for that, it's just, okay, here's a location in the keep. Here's a little mini encounter. Maybe it's a little mini quest. And then there's really no reason to ever visit that building, that room, or whatever again. That is not the case here. This is essentially a living, breathing town, and I love that. Plus, there's so many opportunities for the Castle Keeper to expand on the town, on this adventure. Really happy to see that. So, of course, the player characters hopefully set out to get rid of this giant. Otherwise, there's not really going to be an adventure going on. It'll be like, okay, thanks for rolling up characters. See you next time. And there are some cool set pieces here. Like I said, it's kind of standard fare, but it's not ho-hum. It's not boring. So I like that. There are opportunities to get past certain encounters, certain challenges without having to resort to violence. The giant, probably going to see the player characters need to take the giant on. But the thing is, it's not just the giant, the goblins, and then, okay, well, we defeated the giant. Hey, it's over. We're done. There are other things going on with these cave systems. Right here, it's talking about the third level of these caves. Well, it's not included in the adventure. It's telling the castle keeper, hey, you know what? Why don't you design the final level, the third level of this cave system? But then again, if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can just wrap up the adventure with what's included in this booklet. I thought that was really cool. And of course, here we've got our maps of the 2 levels that are included for this. So that's a peek into the Dark. So we got Into the Dark directing the game, our character creation. We got our dice. And we've got our character sheets. I will say, I'm kind of surprised that we don't have just a little card stock Castle Keeper's screen. That would have been really cool to see. As far as the box itself, the box is fairly deep. Here, I'll show you the cover again. So this is a pretty deep box. When someone opens up the box, it's going to look fairly empty. But I also want to point out, these 3 booklets are just packed with content. There is no filler whatsoever with these booklets, and I love that. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I suppose by now you've already figured I really dig this Castles and Crusades starter set, and you would be right. Now, granted, I do wish that we had additional 6-sided dice with the polyhedral set. I wish we had a full color presentation. I think a little more visual pop is what people expect from their role-playing games. And the artwork is great. It just loses a little something when it's presented in grayscale as opposed to being full color. Now, I do also wish that there was a little cardstock Castle Keeper screen in here. And it is kind of weird because the box is about 1.5 inches, maybe close to 2 inches deep. When you open it up, the box feels kind of empty. But that is a perception thing. That is not necessarily a reality thing, because Those 3 booklets are jam-packed with content. I love the fact that the character creation book is going to run everybody through the process of those 4 character classes and how to get them from 1st level through 6th level. You normally do not see any character creation information in a starter set. And the fact that even the ones that have a little bit, even with pre-generated characters, if it's a leveling system, it's 1 to 3, not 1 to 6. And that's something else I really dig about this starter set is its focus is not just to be able to walk the players and the game master through the process of running the introductory adventure. That is normally what we will see. As an example, directing the game is aimed at introducing the concepts of being a castle keeper to the gamer. So if you want to be a game master, you want to be a castle keeper, this is going to put you on the right track. Something the new Dungeons and Dragons Heroes of the Borderlands starter set doesn't do is provide players the information on how to be a dungeon master. It provides information on how to run the adventure booklets that are contained in the box set. And that is the extent. Now, I'm not saying that that's a problem. That tends to be par for the course as far as starter sets. So I love the fact that this box set is aimed at being an introduction to Castles and Crusades and being a set that you can utilize for a good amount of time at your game table, not just until the introductory adventure is over. Plus, the introductory adventure, I love how we've got all these little story nuggets, these adventure hooks. There's a lot of impetus for the castle keeper to go beyond what's in the booklet as far as the adventure. Now, are you forced to do that? No, absolutely not. You can run into the dark exactly as written, but there's so much there for the castle keeper to expand out from that town of or village of Grey Gulch. And it's not only the giant with the band of goblins that the player characters can be dealing with. Something I do want to make sure that people do understand is this is not a starter set that is aimed at people who have absolutely no clue about role-playing games. 20-sided die, what's that? This is not going to hold people's hands throughout the entire process. Information is presented. It is presented entertainingly, but it is not something that you're going to see a lot of redundancy until the point gets across or anything like that. So if you are someone who maybe you're like, oh, hey, you know, I hear all these things about Dungeons and Dragons, but maybe I don't want to go with Dungeons and Dragons, this might not be your fantasy role-playing starter set. If you are someone who has a little bit of knowledge of role-playing games, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to play them for years and years or run them for years and years, but have kind of a clue about the process. This is a perfect introduction to Castles and Crusades and fantasy role-playing, especially if you're aiming for more of an old school vibe. If you're kind of curious how adventuring went in the late 1970s, early 1980s, this is a great peek while also utilizing modern mechanics and not being shackled to some of those older, clunkier mechanics that we saw in the late 1970s and early 80s. Now, you might be wondering when you hear my review score, how did this outscore the Dungeons and Dragons starter set that's jam-packed with cards and dice with extra 6-sided dice and a lot of monster cards and the player mats? Granted, that did not include a cardstock Dungeon Master screen, which I was a little surprised by. And I will boil my answer down to the Heroes of the Borderlands starter set is designed to introduce people to Dungeons and Dragons and to get through that introductory adventure. The Castles and Crusades Starter Set is designed to introduce people to Castles and Crusades and move them beyond just what's included in the box. That is a huge difference. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give the Castles and Crusades Starter Set an 8.5 out of 10. I like it a bunch. I got to be honest, if it had the additional 6-sided dice, color presentation, maybe the cardstock GM screen, probably looking 9.5 on this. Even though it doesn't have those things, still like this a ton. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.